Aparna, it's such a delight to have you here. I spent last night reading your book, and I was in parts harrowed, but also in parts admiring of your courage to both live through it and to then write about it. Because I think there's very little in this area of mental illness, which is a lived experience. And for you to actually write about it, write about all the things that you've been through, everything that you've tried, you're quite a therapy junkie, you have to be, is quite remarkable. I want to take you back to how you started the book, where you have this episode in Munger at the Bihar School of Yoga, which I'm also a great admirer of. I think they do a terrific job. But I want to take you back to that moment and what it felt like when you thought, this is something that even I have not experienced before.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kavri. Thank you for having me here and for the Lit Fest. It's really been a wonderful way to get to see a little bit of Bhubaneswar too. When I was in Munger, I was in an ashram and I had gone there to kind of make myself stronger. And I was going through this phase where I was actually psychotic, I was having voices in my head, there was mania, there was delusion, there was hallucination. But at the end of it all, to me, it all seemed very normal, right? So the people around me could see that something was going wrong. But to me, it actually felt normal. And it was only when I realized that, I couldn't travel, and that my husband had to come and get me, fetch me from Mumbai and come to Patna and get me, that we realized that, this really needs a lot of help and attention. So what I'm trying to say about these phases that you go through your life, when the person is going through them, they don't really realize what is happening. They don't know what is happening.
Exactly. And it takes what is now called an intervention for you to get to a point where you seek help. But this was not the first time that something like this had happened. You had had episodes of, this anxiety, you'd had episodes like this before. What was so different about this that sort of pushed you to recognizing that this is a medical condition?
I think earlier, we could we could kind of manage it with maybe taking some medication which may or may not have been prescribed or whatever, but just helping me to sleep, basically. But this time it was really intense. It was very intense, it was very raw, and it was totally uncontrolled. So there's just no way that anything apart from tranquilizing medication would have sorted me out at that point in time. And when you need that medication, then you realize that, okay, this is a medical issue and not a personality issue. Because one of the biggest myths with anything related to mental health or mental illness is that हम लोग सोचते हैं कि ये उसका स्वभाव है, ये उसका personality है. वो so and so moody है या so and so कि मतलब उसको गुस्सा बहुत होता है. We think that these are personality issues and not a medical condition. And so I think until then we really were trying to understand, is it a personality issue or is it a medical condition? And then when I reached a stage where I required the medication and I required the medical care and I required a psychiatrist, then we said, okay, theek hai, now we understand that this is a medical condition and let us treat it in that way.
But getting to that point where you recognize that it's a medical condition, you often have people around you telling you, Arey, why didn't you come to us before? What were you doing? Didn't you see the signs? There's a lot of blame apportioning that happens. And in such a situation, the family also is quite guilt-ridden sometimes. Your mom or your dad or your sister. Did they ever feel, we should have pushed her to this point to taking this help earlier? Because the family, the person who's afflicted suffers, but the family around you suffers as intensely.
Yeah, if there's one thing I've written in my book, and if there's one reason to read my book is it's because of the role of the people around you also. ये किताब सिर्फ मेरे लिए नहीं है, ये जो भी परिवार और या समाज में जो भी हैं, जिनके यहाँ उनके करीब में किसी के पास mental health problem है, उनके लिए भी है. You know, so because the thing is that, you know, as I keep saying, mental health is a team sport.
Yeah.
You know, जैसे हम लोग cricket खेलते हैं, it's a team sport. No one person can win a cricket match. Whoever that person is, even if that person happens to be Sachin Tendulkar, you know, it requires a team. So mental health is like that also. It's not like COVID that you can just go into your room and you'll, you know, isolate yourself and within 5 days or 7 days or whatever it is, you'll come out and you'll become okay. So it really requires the help of the whole team. I think in my case, what happened is that even I wasn't that keen on medication because, you know, a lot of people earlier were saying that if you take the medication, you may not be able to have a family, it'll be harder to get pregnant.
Or you get addicted to it, you become dependent on it. There's so many
there are a lot of things, reasons why we don't want to take medication, right? So for a good 10 years, or 13 years actually, I didn't take medication. So I'm not here to say कि दवाई ज़रूरी है कि दवाई नहीं लेना चाहिए. I think it all depends on your condition. And अगर आपको depression है, ऐसा ज़रूरी नहीं है कि आपको दवाई लेनी ही है या नहीं लेनी है, ऐसा नहीं है. But what I'm saying is don't hesitate to go to a doctor. Don't hesitate to go to a psychiatrist. Don't hesitate to go to a therapist. You don't need to have, you know, wait for a crisis before you go to one of those people.
Right. I want to ask you, because a lot of families have gone through this as well, you know, when is the tipping point? And that brings with it so much pain and trauma for the family. Again, I focus on the family. You know, what is your advice to them? Because they, you know, the person who's afflicted is there, but the family carries this guilt around for so long that I wish we had done this earlier, I wish we could have done this earlier. What's your advice to them?
I think you do the best you can. Like, I think, to be very honest, I don't think my mother's read my book because she finds it too painful.
Yeah,
you know,
to relive all that.
Yeah, I don't think she wants to read it. So I think that you know, certainly my sons are too young to read it, but my husband and my sister have read it. I think the thing is, you know, the families can support only as much as the patient also wants to listen. If the patient doesn't want to listen, it becomes very difficult for the families. What can the family do, you know? You have to try and get somebody else to talk to the patient. Maybe you get another doctor or a family friend who has some medical experience, or somebody else who's gone through something, and get that person to listen to them, because it's very, very, very difficult for the family.
Yeah. Let's talk a little about you, because at the heart of it, there's you and how you've been coping with this and living with this, suffering through it. And, you know, at moments you've almost contemplated, sometimes even, you know, just ending your life, looking at which is the best terrace to jump from. Terrifying.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I found those very difficult to read. What was it like to revisit that?
Actually, writing it was good for me, I think, you know. You won't believe that I was writing this book, मैं ये किताब लिख रही थी जब मेरा 8th standard का बच्चा अपना कोविड में हम लोग बैठे थे, स्टडी में शेयर कर रहे थे, और वो अपनी क्लास कर रहा था और मैं अपनी कहानी लिख रही थी, तो दोनों चीज़ साथ में हो रहे थे. सो इट्स नॉट लाइक आई जस्ट लुक्ड एट इट एज कि देखो, मुझे ये कहानी लिखनी है, मैं बहुत सालों से लिखना चाहती हूँ, तो मुझे लिखना है ही. जब मैं शुरू कर रही थी कहानी लिखने में, आई वॉजंट एबल टू डू इट बिकॉज आई वॉज टू क्लोज टू द मटीरियल, आई वॉजंट डिटैच्ड इनफ. But by the time I started writing it again during COVID, I was quite stable. And I've been in a good place. I've been stable for now 4.5, nearly 5 years. So,
congratulations.
Thank you.
Takes a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
and
thank you. Thank you so much for that applause.
Thanks.
You have to read it to know what she's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very sorry the copy of the book did not reach. But the bookseller has said if you want to leave the mobile number, he'll get a copy to you. Of course, it's also available at Amazon.
It's available online.
Online and other
Khichdi,
shops.
don't forget to buy it.
Yeah.
Because I think we all underestimate, our mental health, and we sort of don't tend to take care of it, and sometimes not in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, I think the question is that there have been times in my life when I have been pretty unhappy, and you can think also like you might have everything in life.
Yeah.
Like I think from the outside I had everything in life. I studied at Oxford. I studied at Harvard. I was
did very
CEO.
well. You were CEO of your company.
I was CEO of my company. One of my former colleagues is here in front. And I had 2 beautiful children. I had a husband who was very supportive. And still, I found myself on the terrace of my building saying, how high is this? This is only 3 or 4 stories high. If I jump off this building, will I actually end my life, or will I end up in a wheelchair for the rest of my life? So, and that was the thing that probably held me back. So I think that what I've learned, and the reason why I was feeling that way is because I really felt I wasn't good enough, and I think there's one message I really want to get across to people, and especially to young people, is that we often compare ourselves to other people, and we think we're not good enough. We're not rich enough, we're not smart enough, we're not attractive enough, we're not whatever it is, we're not fluent in English enough, whatever it is. We have so many ways that we can kind of be tough on ourselves. And I think at some point we just have to realize that we are enough. My therapist
Very well said.
Yeah, that my therapist actually told me, Aparna, I want you to stand in front of the mirror and every day tell yourself, may I love myself and accept myself and not judge because I am good enough. And really, I think that is the message that we have to give. Because especially ये social media के ज़माने में, we are just seeing किसके likes हैं, किसके कितने likes हैं. And it is the most difficult thing to be living when we are constantly judging ourselves. It is not that nobody else was judging me. It's not like the world around me was judging me. I was judging myself, and if I had to be happy, ultimately, I had to love myself. So.
And that's the hardest thing, right? And you've talked about the various therapies, and I love that, the kind of detailing that you've done. In India, I hope you know, and this is one of the remarkable statistics in her book, there's only one psychiatrist for 200,000 people. I mean, that's shameful in a country which leads in mental illness, as far as I know. It's one of the leading, it's a dubious distinction, but it is. So, the therapies that you've undergone, and you tell other people that they can look at these as well. I want you to quickly run through them so that people know exactly because it's not just a memoir, I want to tell people, it's also a self-help book in a way. And it's a guidebook, actually, for anyone who's either suffering from mental illness or knows someone who's suffering from it, or has a member of the family who's suffering from it. It really is very, very useful. So just talk us through some of the therapies.
So, Kaveri, like, so my illness is called bipolar disorder, and it only happens to, let's say, 1% of the population. But the way I look at it, 100% of the population wants to be happier, right? 100% of the population wants mental wellness. And yet stress, anxiety, depression, burnout, these are all things that we have to deal with in our daily lives. Either we have it, or time to time it happens, right? I'm not saying it's a permanent thing, but time to time these things happen. So what I did was I put together this model of saying there are these 7 therapies, and these are all everyday therapies from everyday life. So what are these 7 therapies? So first is the role of the medical professionals. Let's say you need a psychiatrist, okay, you go to a psychiatrist, that's one. But even if you don't need a psychiatrist, you can go to a therapist. You know, you can go to a counselor. It is not like घर में कुछ होना चाहिए कि किसी का divorce हो रहा है, उसीलिए हम लोग counselor के पास जा रहे हैं या therapist के पास जा रहे हैं. Anybody can actually go and talk to a therapist or a counselor, and these are all available now.
Yeah.
Online, you can find them. You know, there are many companies doing it. Amaha or Your Dost, for example, Therapize. In my book, I've listed many of these resources. So going to a counselor, anybody can talk to, and these therapists have really, I think, changed my life over a period of time. दूसरी चीज़ I think is love therapy. Is the role of the caregivers in your life. Are they supportive? That's really, really important. The third thing I think is lifestyle therapy. I don't know if everybody appreciates how much discipline and self-care makes a difference to one's life.
Yeah.
You know, sleep, there is no mental health condition that is not related to sleep.
Yeah.
Sleep is one of the first things that gets triggered, and sleep is one of the first indicators that something is going wrong. That
That's
you should
why,
have a
Aparna,
look.
I find it very offensive when people boast about the fact that they don't sleep enough and, you know, that they don't need it.
Yeah,
And-
yeah.
I mean, it makes no sense to me. It's not a great thing.
Yeah, I tell people I need like 7-8 hours of sleep, you know.
Yeah.
I can't take a flight at this time in the morning because what will happen to my sleep?
Exactly.
You know, so, I mean, there was a time in my life, I think Girish knows, I used to take these flights at 7 in the morning and go to Nagpur and come back, and it'll be midnight by the time I come back. I can't do that anymore, you know. I
And
just
why
can't.
should you punish yourself?
Yeah, so I think the point is that sleep is really important. Exercise is really important. I mean, exercise is like taking medication, really. Like, honestly, if you don't want to take medication, then please exercise. You
Right.
know, and nutrition obviously is very, very important. The other thing is, but having some play and joy in your life, right? That self-care part, like looking after yourself, having a hobby, whether it's music, whether it's reading. We're at a lit fest, whether it is movies, whatever it is, but doing something actively. And even when I say movies, I don't mean watch Netflix on your phone is not a hobby. Okay, you cannot put that. That doesn't count as self-care. So these three things are things that help you to survive. Okay, the medical part, the family part, and the lifestyle part. But if you really want to thrive, if you want to reach a stage where today you can stand up on a stage and say, okay, you know, I have a mental illness and I'm happy to talk about it, you need other things in your life. You need the role of work. Workplaces can be very stressful, but work can be very, very therapeutic. You know, so I think work therapy can, you know, if you can find that balance, that's really important. I think you can have really good spiritual therapy in your life.
Yeah.
I think spiritual therapy is so important. And we are blessed to be living in a country where we have all those resources available to us if we want to,
She
you
has
know.
a lovely thing called a spiritual playlist in the book, which lists a gamut of songs, you know, from O Palan Hare to to other bhajans,
Yeah,
to
everything.
A.R. Rahman songs. So it's really music that sort of calms you and, you know, sort of connects you to
If you don't want to go to a psychiatrist, then you please find something that you do that is the equivalent for me of sitting in your jhula and listening to music. And
You're
if that
a
will change.
Gujarati, that's why you need a jhula.
No, I think I'm just a wannabe Gujarati because I have a jhula in my house. So
I love that wannabe Gujarati.
yeah, I'm a wannabe Gujarati. I grew up with a lot of Gujaratis. So
Spiritual therapy is really
Spiritual therapy is
underrated,
really,
yeah,
really important.
and it's underrated.
yeah, it's very underrated. You know, the way I look at it is that medical therapy will help you deal with your symptoms. The medication, the drug. Talk therapy will help you understand your trigger. Psychologically, why is this happening? क्यों हो रहा है? आपके मन में ये विचारे क्यों आ रहे हैं? But the real understanding, spiritual therapy will tell you why is your gun loaded.
Yeah,
Your gun should not be loaded in the first place.
right.
Okay, so I think spiritual therapy takes you to a very, very deep place. What is happiness? What is success? What is purpose in life? How do you understand these very, very important issues of life that make us a lot happier? And also, you know, spiritual therapy is about being happy for no reason. See, it's easy enough to be happy if you do, if you lose 5 kilos, you'll be happy. Yes. if your child does really well in their academics, huh? What?
Make it 50 in my case.
50, make it a lot more than 5 in my case. So if you lose weight, you're happy. If you go for a holiday abroad, you're happy. If you get a promotion, you're happy. So if there are many reasons in your life, you are happy. But can you be happy for no reason?
Yeah. I mean, finding joy in simple things, as you said,
Yeah.
just in your child's laughter or a walk in the park,
Exactly.
Little things that you mentioned.
Just be a joyful person, right? Like
doesn't mean that you have to be ha, but
just be like a joyful person.
Yeah.
Exactly. For no reason, you find yourself being happy. I'm not saying you have to be, as you said, laughing all the time, but just be, happy without having a particular reason to do so. Anyway, so that's spiritual therapy. I think the really important thing also is the role of the other people in your ecosystem, which I call the allies.
Allies.
Your
Very
friends,
nice.
your mentors, your networks. This is really important because, not the family can't do everything by themselves. So having those allies in your life are really, really important. And the last thing, most important thing, is the talk that is going on in your head, the conversation that you are having with yourself. So for the last 10 years, I've been maintaining a journal where I talk about, I just share my thoughts and my feelings, why I'm feeling what I'm doing and what I can do about it.
You also record yourself.
Sometimes I do, yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I record myself, but sometimes, a lot of the time these days I try and write it. And writing just a journal or sharing your thoughts somewhere, it gives you a lot of rigor. It gives you a lot of empathy also, but it's just a great place to let go of emotions, to find a little bit of detachment.
Right.
And most of the times when we are unhappy, it's because of those emotions in us.
Yeah. You also talked about the 3 pivots, which again, 3 Ps, which again I found very interesting. Would you like to mention those? Pivot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 3 Ps are slightly different. They are if you want to change careers. That you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
One is pivot, I made a note, portfolio of activities and prototype.
Okay.
I like those 3 Ps.
Okay. So the 3 Ps are, I'm just shifting gear a little bit. It's for if you want to change a career, okay? If you want to go...
But you know why I say that's important?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our mental illness also comes from our validation at work, right? So, I mean, I may be in a seemingly great job, but I may be, really miserable, So how do I pivot, as you say, and what you call the jungle gym syndrome, right?
So I think a lot of it, in life, we are not able to adjust to the things around us that are changing. Okay. Now, what happened in my life was that I grew up thinking I was going to be this great entrepreneur because I had a family business. My father, my uncle, everybody, my grandfather, they were all business people, and I was going to be a business person. My mother used to write about business people and family businesses. I studied at Harvard, so everything felt like destiny was taking me in one direction. But then I actually started working, and even though I enjoyed some parts of it were not suited out. I was not cut out to do what I thought I always had to do. So I suddenly had to change my entire sense of who I was as a person, and I had to really make this pivot. Now, we use this word pivot for startups. Startups are going from one place to the other. So I thought that the only way I can pivot is really take the help of a lot of mentors who advised me. I then also decided to live not a life where I was just doing one thing, but that I was doing like a portfolio of activities. So today I write, I teach, I speak, and I'm involved in a little bit of philanthropy. So that is my portfolio. And the other thing is what I've learned, and I think probably this is the one thing for the young people really I would like to reach out to, is can you think of yourself as a prototype? Okay, as a prototype is something that is part of an experiment that is not fixed, that keeps changing. So every time I looked at failure, I said, I've not failed, I'm just a prototype.
Just a work in progress.
I'm a work in progress, and whatever I've done, which is not worked out for me, I'll learn something from it and put it every time I do something different, I'll use that knowledge.
Right.
So, I think of myself not as a failure, but as a prototype. And then that means I keep learning also.
Right. And there's no age. I mean, it's not that, oh, it's too late for you or you can't begin again. Often we also have that sense that time is running out, and especially for women, this has been my experience as well. We feel that, there's this biological clock, or, there's a time to have a family, there's a time to do this, a time to do that. We feel that time's running out. We feel we have to do it all as soon as possible. You don't have to, right?
No,
you can take your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Take the scenic route.
I think that if you do things in a slow way, I think you actually benefit more.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so before I ask the audience to ask a few questions very quickly, I also want you to, is there some, you've talked about chanting as a big help, and you've talked about the Hare Rama, Hare Krishna. Is there one mantra or a chant that you would recommend to us when we're feeling, a little anxious, or something that just calms you down? What's your go-to mantra?
I mean, I think it's really, really personal. So I think it's about how you use a mantra at a particular point in time. Like, I think that something like Hare Rama, Hare Krishna is such a universal mantra that anyone can use. I use it to help me sleep a lot. Like, when I struggle with sleep, I use that. But then I also listen to like English songs to help me get motivated. Right. They are also my mantras. So I think it really depends. I listen to Sonam Kalra and the Sufi Gospel Project all the time to get me motivated. So I think it's about finding those mantras, and they will come to you, Right. What I would say is, rather than taking up one mantra, is look for the mantra, and the mantra will come to you.
Right. You also talked about the Bhagavad Gita shlok that changed your life. You want to mention that?
Yeah, there was one shlok which my yoga teacher told me, and I was telling her all these problems about, this family business thing, and, what have I done? I've been like a big failure. I'm no longer the family business. My family wants me to leave the family business. And then, and I said, how do I look at dharma? And she gave me a shlok which said that, basically you have to find your own dharma. Until you find your own dharma and you're doing somebody else's dharma, there is a lot of danger or worry, anxiety, fear. But when you do your own dharma, there is peace. So I think she did not explain to me what that shlok meant. And I would love you to read the book and to find out exactly what she meant when she said that. But really, I thought so much about this shlok, about what is dharma for me. What does that actually mean? What is purpose? What is meaning, right? Is dharma, is it just duty that we always think it is? Is it truth? Is it something more? What is it? And how does that actually apply to my life? So I really started thinking about that a lot, and I think that has been a big part of my journey.
Great. I'm sorry we can't take questions in this session. We're out of time, but I would urge you to, one, read the book, get it, read it, and if Aparna is kind enough, perhaps talk to her.
Yeah, you can always find me on social media, please. I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter. I'm very happy to hear from anybody who wants to get in touch. So.
Thank you so much, everyone. And yeah.